Good afternoon. My name is Alf Langen. I'm an attorney in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I practice family law as well as estate planning, criminal defense, as well as some other areas. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this video blog entry where I'm going to discuss some basic things about child support. So this is a family law related matter, family law related subject. The subject is actually fairly complex and fairly complicated. However, there are some basic things that people should know about whether they're going to be paying child support or receiving child support. So the way I'm going to format this is to answer some questions that I hear all the time and give you some basic information about child support. First, a disclaimer. Nothing that you're hearing today is considered legal advice. If you need legal advice, you should contact me or contact another lawyer and talk to them about your situation. Okay? So this is information only, and don't rely on it unless you talk to another lawyer or talk to me about it first, because your particular situation is unique to you. So first of all, let's talk about who is eligible to receive child support. When parents live in different households for any reason, maybe they're divorcing, or maybe they're already divorced, or if they were never married, maybe they've broken up, the court can order one or both parents to pay child support so that the child can have a reasonable lifestyle. And the amount of child support that is paid is really up to the court. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. The people that are eligible to receive child support are children, obviously. It's why it's called child support, after all. And children are eligible to receive child support up until they're 18 years old, or if they're still in high school, or a related program that would lead to a high school diploma or something like that, until they're 19 years old. So if you have little ones and you're in this situation, looking at child support for several years. Now, even though it's child support and it's payable for the child support is payable to the parent that has placement or custody of the children. The courts are loath to intervene on how this money is spent. We'll talk about that a little bit here. But the bottom line is that the parents are assumed to be responsible people by the courts, and that they will take care to spend the money the way they're supposed to, taking care of their kids and not going out and buying that, that new Ferrari or whatever it is that they want to buy. That's what child support is for. It's to take care of the children and keep them in a lifestyle that is reasonable for them and their family's situation. Now, another question I get all the time is, how does the court actually calculate child support? Well, there is a way that the court calculates child support. It's actually found in the Wisconsin Administrative Code. And the calculation basically goes like this. I'm going to give you an example. Okay, so our example is going to be that we have two kids, and that we have a mom and a dad. Now, and we'll talk about the specifics here in just a second. So the first thing the court has to look at, first variable the court looks at, is how many kids do you have? Now in Wisconsin, we have what's called a percentage standard guidelines that we use to determine child support. And it's based on a number of kids that the family has. One child, 17% of gross income, two children is 25%, three children is 29%, and four or more kids, 34% of gross income. So in our example, we're going to assume that there are two children in the household. So that means that the percentage standard for this example will be 25% of gross income. Now, the second thing that the court looks at is, what are the parents' respective incomes? And in our example, what we're going to do is we're going to assume that dad earns $60,000 a year, or about $5,000 a month, and that mom earns $48,000 a year, or $4,000 a month. Make the numbers a little bit easier that way. Now, because dad makes more money than mom does in this example, even before we talk about the placement arrangement, which is the third variable, you can assume right off the bat that dad's going to be the one that's going to have to pay some child support here. And we'll talk about how that works. Now, the third variable that the court looks at is, how much placement does each parent have? So in other words, placement refers to, just like it sounds, where are the kids placed? Where do they live? Custody and placement, two separate things. That's a different subject. But placement basically refers to where the children actually live. And it means that And for child support purposes, we count number of overnights or equivalents. What are equivalents? Well, good luck figuring that one out. I've seen all kinds of interpretations based on the court. But basically it comes down to number of overnights. In our example, we're going to assume that the parents follow a 2-week rotating schedule, where in week number 1, Dad has the kids on Tuesday night and then Friday and Saturday nights for the weekend. And on week number 2, Dad has the kids Tuesday and Thursday overnights. So over that 14-day period, Dad has the kids 4 out of 14 days, or 36% of the time. That comes out to 130 overnights per year. Now, when we have 130 overnights per year, actually the threshold is 25%. If a parent exercises placement at least 25% of the time, one of the parents the parent who has the lowest amount of placement exercises that amount of placement. Then we have what's called a shared placement formula. Why is that important? Because then what we do is we run the calculation for both parents, and then we subtract the lesser number from the greater number, and that's that net amount is what the parent who makes the most money pays. So the way we calculate child support then is we take the dad's income first. Let's do him. $60,000 times 25% of his gross income comes out to $15,000. Now there's a multiplier that we also use that accounts for the household maintenance costs that each parent has to incur. Things like housing, utilities, that sort of thing. And the regulations say that multiplier is 1.5 or 150%. So we multiply the $15,000 by 1.5, and that comes out to $22,500. And then we multiply that number by the mom's percentage of placement. So since Dad has placements 36% of the time, that means that Mom has it 64% of the time. And when we multiply the $22,500 number by 64%, we come up with $14,486 and change, 30 cents. When we apply the same things to Mom's income, the $48,000 income, and then multiply it by Dad's percentage of placement, 36%, we come up with $6,480 for Mom. So what we then do to determine what the child support should be is we subtract the smaller number from the larger number. So we subtract the $6,480 from the $14,486, and we come up with just over $8,000 a year, $8,006.30 to be exact, which when you divide that by 12 comes out to $667.19 per month. Sounds like a lot of money, but understand that the purpose of child support is to put the parents in a relatively similar position so that wherever the child is living at the time, that the child is going to have roughly the same kind of lifestyle with Mom as they will with Dad. And if you look at the numbers, it actually works out that way. So for instance, when we take Dad's monthly income of $5,000 and we subtract his child support of $667.19, he's going to have just over $4,332, almost $433, in net spendable income. Now that's before taxes, so there's all the taxes stuff has to be taken out of that. Mom's net monthly income, we add the child support to it. So we add the $667.19 onto her $4,000 a month, and she comes up with $4,667. So there's a difference between the two parents after we run the numbers of about $330 some per month. Well, some people might say, well, gee, that isn't fair. Why don't they have the same amount of time or same amount of money? Well, understand, Mom has the kids more often than Dad does. Mom has the kids almost twice as much as Dad does. So it makes sense that she would have a little bit more money to spend than Dad. So in the end, child support comes out to be equal when we run the numbers like that. Now, child support, even though we run those numbers, we run that calculation, child support is still what we call a discretionary determination by the court, which means that the court decides, after running these numbers, whether that amount should be imposed. Statute says that they should use that percentage guideline and that they should impose that number unless they have a reason not to. The court can deviate from that percentage guideline. And there's a whole list of things, about 16 different things that the court looks at. I'm going to determine whether or not it's appropriate to deviate from the percentage guidelines. I'm only going to talk about a couple of them. One of them is maintenance received by either party. So for instance, if Mom and Dad are divorced and Dad's already paying maintenance, which is what we used to call alimony, spousal support, Dad might be paying maintenance to Mom. Well, if Dad's already paying maintenance to Mom, well, then we're going to take into account the maintenance amount that he's paying, and that's going to chip away at his monthly income and reduce the amount of income that he has available to pay child support. What are the other things that the court's going to look at is if the parties were married, the standard of living that the child would have enjoyed had the marriage not ended in a divorce. So, like I said earlier, one of the big things, one of the big purposes of child support is to make sure that the kids have the same kind of lifestyle with both parents. One of the other things that the court could look at to determine whether they should deviate from the percentage standard is the cost of child care. If the custodian, in this case mom, works outside the home, or if mom stays home, the value of her services, her child care services. So if mom is working outside the home, in this example she obviously is, and the kids are little, she might have some daycare expense. Dad probably will too, but they probably won't be as great as mom's. So we take into account what those daycare expenses are, and we might have to tweak the child support accordingly. We also take a look at things like insurance payments. For instance, maybe dad's carrying the kids on his insurance plan through his work. Well, if that's the case, well, he is incurring an extra insurance cost that mom doesn't have in order to cover the kids. Well, he should be compensated for that. And so typically what will happen is the court will allow the child support to be reduced for dad to take into account at least part of what he is paying for insurance to cover the kids. Not his own insurance, but the premium amount that covers the kids. So there's other factors too, but those are some of the big ones that we take a look at. Now, one of the questions I get all the time is that you have a couple of parents who share the kids, and more or less on a 50-50 basis, where mom and dad have the kids at about the same amount of time. And the question I get all the time is, well, gee, I have the kids as often as she or he does. Why do I have to pay child support? Well, go back to our example. The reason you'd still have to pay child support is that that's only one variable. The amount of time that the kids spend with their parents is one variable in determining child support. The others are the parents' respective incomes and and what the percentage standard is for that parent, as well as the other things that we've already talked about. So if you've got two parents that have the kids equal time, but one parent makes more money than the other parent, well, guess what? You're going to pay something. You're going to pay some child support. Now, one other question that I get, and this will be the last thing I'm going to cover in this video, is variable expenses. Variable expenses are expenses that are beyond the norm, that are not considered to be normal expenses that would be covered by child support. Now, under the regulations, it says that variable expenses should be covered by the parents in a percentage equal to their placement time. So in our example, there are variable costs for the kids. Dad would cover 36% of those costs. Mom would cover 64% of those costs. Okay, that's fine. What are variable expenses? Well, here's the problem that we run into. The statute and the regulations don't define what variable expenses are, other than to say that they are expenses that are beyond the norm or beyond the basic food, clothing, shelter expenses. So it really comes down to on a case-by-case basis as to what a variable expense could be. So for instance, things like food and clothing, those aren't variable expenses because you have to pay for those anyway. But let's say Mary has piano lessons, or let's say Tommy plays on the soccer team, or maybe Tommy has piano lessons and Mary plays on the soccer team. Well, the expenses associated with those things, those are a little bit beyond the norm, and those would be considered variable expenses. So there, that covers this topic a little bit here. I hope I've answered a few questions. If you have other questions about this topic or any other family law related topic, you can please give me a call, visit my website, and you can see the information there on how to get a hold of me. It's alflangan.com, ALFLANGAN.com, and you can leave a message there, and which I'll get it, and then I'll get back to you. So thank you very much, and I'll see you later.